I see the elections will not be holding in 2014 period, and also the Sultan have said that the Naira crisis hunger and also anger in the language, money and wealth. The days and then I should after, and of course I have freedom and they hear with me. Alright, we live on Facebook and also on YouTube, so do remember to connect and also drop your comment, drop your contribution on any areas of interest to money, and we'll also open phone line later on the show so you can also add your views or what you feel about any areas of interest you this morning. So let's quickly run through the papers we have history the first paper.
On Nigerian Tribune, all eyes on you on 2023 Buhari tells police. Coup allegation, DSS bureaus from Kayode and driver says my action regrettable, he says. Bank central stations reject old naira notes again, Buhari needs method, and you can read that on page 3. The editorial Nigerian Tribune, why election will hold 840 polling units coming from the INEC, and if you want to read the reasons, you can find that story on page 16. In Cross River, article says restructuring will ensure more accountability. Councils campaign rally in River. I did not saw new note coming from Tinubu. You can read that on page 15. Police detain Abdullah pastor preaching with AK-47. Lagos government orders coroner inquest into Christian and I bet you can read that on page 26 of the paper yesterday, with the families asking for an autopsy and agreeing with what the school says, and now we can see that the government itself is asking the coroner to do the test who actually killed the student. And if you want to read all about that, you can find it on page 26. Buhari's government must address hunger anger in Nigeria from Sultan. Government done Imo High Court, and you can read that on page 26. We have a picture story where we can see a protester disobeying all order is corruption, power must go. And that this is concerning the FCC chairman, and this is how the picture story again. Now this have the paper, and if you want to know what it's all about, you can get the Nigerian people for yourself, and all the news on Nigerian people.
And the same newspaper, despite Supreme Court accepted other owner and the blue side may see, and we have court rejected all bans for filling party cases. Vested interest resisting currency redesign CBN NDC member maintain commercial and mismanaging distribution process give order on regulation of all notes group orders Buhari. And this is very I think we really need to look into it, because I remember when the during hearing of the Supreme Court, and when they said that even if they're not giving the final verdict to Julie this tomorrow, but they said in courts are rejecting the owner of filing cases, fixations, and rejecting the business said inviting this to be like this last week, that's fine, a lot of businesses are rejecting this owner, and it's all because they have more balance owner should still be separation or not. So I just wish I would actually come back about all of this rather than leave people in darkness and don't know what is next forward, where they should kill the operational sometimes like the rejections of all of them. So you could see that a lot of things are already going as it should. The numerals are in separation and so on into the back yesterday, and we're going to go back home the best. So you see that even the bank that just look to somebody who say I have money in and I have access to it. You have to beg for your own money to be able to manage to things. And this is really harsh, and this is actually you're talking about this hunger, and you remember when you said when this hunger, I think people get angry and others put the left, right and center. So who else do you think we really want this and a stress the election just barely about so through the elections, and we're having this lines is not being clear. It's just a matter of time before we hear that people are doing things that are not expected because they're hungry and they're angry. Shops will start to see people walking into people's shops, will see property is destroyed. because people just want to ensure because they can get their own as their own. So I hope that government will something about this. Whatever it is, being governor, we have it, what the president, I hope that come up with a very last resolution at the end of the day, I'll be able to solve the problem of facing your currency, low circulation. And yesterday I said, if we can't have 200, 500, 1,000, what happens to having 50 naira, what happens to having 100 naira? Nothing was done with those million or million naira. So I think that if you can have those currency, even if the bulk by to not more not having any currency whatsoever. So I hope that the banks and all the look into this and have a solution.
When for that all the truth, where the problem lies, where the solution is, and whether as hard as it might be for us to agree, the CBN assistant not hold the power to this hardship, whether we like it or not. Because regardless of what the Supreme Court is trying to do, that when it comes to large judiciary system, they are top. But let's not forget that from the beginning, the CBN had the go ahead from the presidency, from the president himself. And as it stands, the president is still fully in support of whatever the CBN is doing and what the CBN governor is doing. And I remember when the whole deadline, the fee was moved to the 10th, which was started at the 31st of January. I said, we know what the solution is. CBN know what the solution is to move the deadline, which they did, and it is a little bit short time. However, moving the deadline forward installed the scarcity, and I think even if they move it forward again, if they shift the deadline, we will still be having scarcity because what we are having is actually the shortage of the note. That's why the banks are machines. Usually you could be, we know how it functions in the past that you could buy 20,000 when it's 1,000 naira notes, and when it's 500 naira notes, the maximum is 10,000. You could do many, but you can see that the problem is more of a shortage. That's why we go submit here and know you can buy the time is 2,000. The early tells you that the bank don't have enough for the ATM to even function as it used to in the past. And even when it comes to a counter payment, that's why the policy withdrawal is they still don't even have the enough to do the withdrawal to ahead like doing the up to 20,000 on the counter. So I keep saying if CBN is just as you said, if the new notes are scarce, what happened to the notes that were already designed that was available? These are all currency habitants, and it doesn't go a long way helping traders and business people in the market, this lower denomination, and even us too. So what is happening? I feel that it all goes down to the CBN and what they decide to do to ease the stress on Nigeria, or because this is where they sit down with the president, what the outcome is still back on the scene. As we said, even the Supreme Court should say, people using the old notes. We know that not the Supreme Court collects this money. You know that in the end, you're going to transact with your bank and your bank in return to transact with the CBN. So, even as much we know that, okay, you know what, it's not here to deposit. It doesn't work. So that's the fear for people that, it is the fact that we work with when it comes to money. For that reason, what they say goes. We know that the Supreme Court has in mind is the hardship, but boils down to CBN isn't a hardship when it comes to
you can expect that the same law regulations as last even busy newspaper someone the Lagos business community reassure stakeholders of state commercial on page 11 and the sultan saying we need to dose tension people are hungry and angry. Explain why the president results you can read more down on front page and also 30. And the big three beat writer and expressed concern about violent attacks on political parties. This election was holding 240 polling units and expressed analyzed insurance of 1,681. We have a picture story briefing the president, significant information, and that's all of the newspaper.
On the newspaper, Nigerian territory under Boko Haram and ISWAP. All these billionaires for crude oil is coming from the defense minister, certain federal government politicians. Put politics aside, Nigerian to support terrorists and farmers flashy. 4,000 died from UK Nigeria paid 5.5 billion euros. A such reaction, Nigerian watching you Buhari tell police. We have regular election in 240 polling units on Buhari. We have Tionko allegation article held DSSA from the side being not alone. You can read that on page 8. And the last side of the paper, we are preparing Nigerian youth for the trial revolution coming from Seni, and we're looking forward to seeing how and the way forward preparing for the trial revolution. CSOs protesting Lagos about fit to head EFCC. Then gunmen attack another police station, Q1. 1,500 sacked protests in Oshun. Federal government spent 82% of revenue on debt servicing this year, 2023, and that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
On Punch newspaper, not will benefit greatly from Kulmani oil field coming from Simo. Share of Nazi mod HIV coming from Nika, which you can find on page 80. And coming from PDP, article reverse rally council to present technical report that page 8. I regret racing cool alarms and the after the essence reading, which you can find more about during page 20. The big three Naira deadline banks fuel station reject all notification of Supreme Court order with provider Buhari admitted again a school Naira deposit hit about 2 trillion naira, and we have to add operators deposit a tiny flood banking halls with all currency. Fuel marketers selling banks caught short back lawyers with expired money, which you find more that on page 2 and 18. We have a picture story here because Buhari launched security equipment. One of these items politics are rejected items that are needed for the security. Some of the training over there, and we can see actually of the with the president and other stakeholders there. So I hope that we make good use of the equipment that we provided. All of this will actually protect lives and property and ensure the election is safe. Still, the issue of beatings from the full protesters besieged Christland as government orders inquest, which you can find before 5. AK-47 bearing passport arrested, police are facing church apologizes. And we have a bridge where it says detailed report 110 companies, which shall find page 31. That's all of the Punch newspaper.
On the independent, aviation for his 800 naira per litre as airline operators cry out. Elections won't hold in 140 polling units nationwide coming from INEC. One political party's on violent campaign. And the big story, 2023 general election, Buhari to police. The nation, global community watching you. The writer says, IGP again asks police to bar states quasi-security outfit from polls. And you can read all of that on page 29. Labour Party asks security agencies to stop attacks on supporters in Lagos. Federal government berates UK, US over frivolous travel adversaries. Cash crunch and Mefele spotted in Aso Rock meets Buhari again. We will get those who stole Calabar Port project money coming from Atiku. Nigeria's paid emerged next CEO of Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, and you can read that on page 7. We have no preferred candidate coming from the US This is on the 2023 poll. Bauer must go protest takings as more CSOs join action. And you can read all of that on page 4. At the downside of the paper, Nigerians hungry, angry, Sultan warns. Bank rejects old Naira notes, disregard Supreme Court order. You can read that on page 2. We still have a picture story showing the protest that Bauer must go, and that's all the news on Daily Independent.
On the Nation newspaper, Tinubu vows to translate Kulmani oil to prosperity. That you can find on page 5. Why polls won't hold in the 214 unit by INEC, and I'd like to read more detail of that story. Following the redistribution of voters to the new polling unit nationwide, the Independent National Electoral Commission has revealed that there were 240 polling units without registered voters spread across the 28 states and the Federal Capital Territory. As such, the electoral body declared that elections will not be held in the 240 polling units spread across the country. The INEC chairman, Professor Mamu Yakubu, made this known on Monday in Abuja at a meeting with political parties held at the Commission's headquarters. He recalled that in 2021, with the support of political parties and other critical stakeholders, the Commission successfully expanded voter access to polling units 25 years after the last delimitation exercise in 1996. Yakubu says consequently, the number of polling units increased from 119,973 to the current figure of 176,846. He noted that at the previous meetings, the Commission also briefed political parties on the effort to redistribute voters to the polling units in order to avoid the congestion that make voting cumbersome in many of them nationwide. Yakubu stated this required this must be done after consultation with the voters. This has been done by our state officers nationwide. However, there were 240 polling units without registered voters spread across the 28 states and the Federal Capital Territory. These range from 1 polling unit to 12 polling units in each state and the FCT, except Taraba and Imo State with 34 and 38 polling units respectively. No new registrar chose the polling units and no voters indicated interest to transfer to them during the last continuous voters registration, mainly for security reasons. This means that no election will hold in these polling units. So this is how the story on why the INEC have decided that elections will not be holding in this 214 polling units. And it's really sad, looking at the fact that even though he gave reasons why there will be no elections in those polling units, either because of security reasons and also nobody have actually transferred, because we know they try to expand some of these polling units so that to reduce congestion and all of that. So we just hope we'll keep our fingers crossed, and it's really sad for those who won't be able to participate because there are no voters being registered in those polling units. Still on the Nation newspaper, we have on Naira policy. Has Supreme Court ruling been compiled with? This is the question, and the answer is on the front page and also on page 4, which you need to read more about that policy. And on Turkey, Syria earthquake, 37,000 dead, 90,000 injured, and you can find that story more on page 27. And gunmen burn courts, which you can find more of that too. Downside of the paper, Naira crisis has brought hunger and anger, says the Sultan. Monarch asks the president to take action, and bank reject old notes shut out customers. And we have the court to the SPDP Rivers acquisition of Kidney Island OML 11 irreversible. You can find that story on page 6. Lagos begin test run of blue light rain, which you can find more on page 27, and DSS squeeze release Fani Kayode, which you can also find on page 6, and that's all on the Nation newspaper.
On the Daily Sun newspaper, Rivers purchase of Kidney Island, OML 11 irreversible, court tells SPDC, and you can read more details on page 29. While we are training youths on cutting-edge tech coming from Naseni EVC, The big story on Daily Sun, INEC excludes 240 polling units from voting. Nigerians to cast vote in 176,600 polling units. Voters to get SMS to no polling units. Family of 5 die in Lagos Badagry Expressway auto crash. Court decides bail application of Ali Bello, 3 others today. Governor Bello not defendant in matter court proceedings show, and you can read that on page 5. Still on polls attacking non-indigenes, others in Lagos, other state won't help APC. Coming from Atiku, stand up for your rights, resist intimidation, Ohaneze tells Igbo electorate, and you can read all of that on page 29. Obi meets OPC leaders, others affirms commitment to restructuring. Fani Kayode to DSS, I goofed on coup allegation. CSOs continue protest against EFCC chair in Lagos. We have IGP accuses Oduduwa nation agitators, IPOP of election disruption plot. Police to monitor transport unions, Amotekun, Ebubegu, and other pledges, CDS, and you can read that on page 26. We have a picture story starting from the left to the right where we can see the chairman, Titan Trust Bank, Mr. Tunde Lemo, Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs, Princess Adejoke Arelope Adeture, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State, Director General Budget Office of the Federation, Mr. Ben Akabuzo, and Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola-san, during an interactive session with the organized private sector in Lagos yesterday. And that's all the news on Daily Sun.
On first news, we have the Southwest Labour Party leaders collapse structure into APC, predict Obi won't get 1,000 votes. You can find more of that story inside the paper. And coming from the military, IPOP can't stop elections in the Southeast. 12 days to election, it's time to decide, says Peter Obi. And we have the big story on the paper, why elections won't hold in 240 polling units, says INEC. States affected polling unit cut across the 28 states and Abuja. No voter indicated interest in transferring to those polling units during the last vote registration exercise due to insecurity, coming from the INEC chairman, and he discloses the polls will be conducted in 176,606 other units. Other news on the first news we have, I've never given Khan shishi before, coming from Peter Obi. This is in relation to the story we saw yesterday where they said there was about 2 billion naira that was given to Khan and some mega churches, but then they have actually come out to state clearly that no money was given. And we can see that the Labour Party presidential candidate is saying he did not give a dime to anybody, so all of that has been clarified. Still on first news on elections, sack Lagos Rec cancel Olumo contract, Labour Party tells INEC. And on still on elections, Nigerians world watching you, Buhari tells the IGP and service chiefs, and not just are they watching the police, but they are watching us all. So I hope that we do ourselves proud, not just because other nations are watching us, but because we owe it to ourselves to actually make this election, because one of those best elections where we will not hear that the ballot box was snatched, somebody was killed, talks left, right, and center. I think we have grown past that level, I believe, as a country. With all that is happening, the insecurity we are facing, I believe we can do ourselves the best possible by actually, being of good behavior throughout this election. And that is why I'm craving and begging on the government and also the CBN to make sure that money is in circulation so that you don't have a reason why you want to disrupt the election or cause confusion, because if you are angry, out of anger doesn't solve anything at the end of the day. So let's just know that everybody's eye is on us, so we have to be that giant of Africa by setting the example for other African countries. And that's all on the first newspaper. But before we move further with other papers we have this morning for you, we'd like to take a break so we can let you actually contribute to the stories that are happening. What do you feel about what the Sultan have said about hunger and anger in the land as a result of the Naira crisis? And we can see even banks, fuel station, and even the court, some of the appeal court calls are refusing to collect the old note. So these and many others are what we have been looking at. So when we come back, we'll take your phone calls and also know what you have to say. Please do not go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, it's still the Dailies on Equa Television International. We've been looking at various stories that have been making the headlines from our newspaper, from the reason why elections will not be holding in 214 polling units coming from INEC, and also the Sultan have said that as a result of the Naira crisis, there's hunger and also, anger in the country, and so the federal government should do something about this. These and many others are what we have been looking at on the paper. I'm still Stella Elisha, and I still have Rachel here with me. Thank you so much,
You're
Rachel.
welcome.
Our phone lines are open at this moment. You can call us. Our numbers are displayed on your screen. You can also, drop your comment on our Facebook page, and we'll do well by taking them. Let's move further with the paper, Rachel, by moving to the New Telegraph.
On the New Telegraph, Naira mop up, currency outside banks dropped by 9.52% to 2.57 trillion Naira. Report projects positive outcome for Nigeria's oil, gas in 2023. Cash crunch again, Buhari meets Emefiele. Autumn to Benue, people be vigilant, acquire legal weapons to ward off invaders. Legals orders coroner inquest into Chrisland school pupils' death. Again, New Telegraph shines at Man Reporter of the Year award. And the big story on New Telegraph, military ready to ensure elections.
Sorry, we have Mrs. Stephen from Makodi. Good morning, Mrs. Stephen. Hello, Mr. Stephen. Are you there? Good morning.
The police has shortage of manpower. As long as police has shortage of manpower, the military too should be used because the best said our country is overstaffed. So they know that police always be at all look at this country. They're supposed to recruit more police before this election. So whatever happened, they should not blame police for anything. And again, they should be removed from PECOM. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stephen, for that meaningful contribution. Please, let's go on, Rachel.
The big story on New Telegraph, military ready to ensure election holds nationwide. This is coming from CDS. Says AFN police orders on alert. Police get 1,509 AK-47 rifles, APC bulletproof vests, other assets. Will not conduct election in 240 PUs, says INEC. Why Nigeria's military is overstretched by Magasi. Provide security, free, credible polls coming from Buhari. Still on terrorism, Nigeria mocks US-UK over travel adversaries, describes the alert as frivolous, affront on Nigerians' peace and security. Buhari to transition panel, prepare sustainable roadmap for incoming government on HIV/AIDS, gets kudos from American official for not seeking third term. Court to Shell, don't interfere with Rivers' control of assets, OML 11. No stay at home during election, coming from IPOP, and you can read more of that on page 29 and 30. PMS crisis, Western Zone marketers cry out over price discrimination. You can read the details of that on page 4. We have a writer that says NNPCL evacuate 502.21 liters between February 4 to 10. Says 71.74 million liters evacuated daily. And on presidential campaign, we have this is decision time. Obi declare as Labour Party demand redeployment, Lagos regs blacklisting. We have I will restructure Nigeria coming from Atiku. Southwest PDP women strategize for his victory. At the downside of the paper, we have a study. Mercury in canned tuna may impair brain function in kids. And you can read more of that story on page 26. And that's all the news on New Telegraph.
On the Daily Times newspaper, U.S. has no preferred candidate in Nigerian presidential election, coming from the envoy, which you can read on the front page and also more inside the paper. And CIBN rates Nigerians banking industry strong focus. You can find that on page 3. Wike denies sponsoring assassination attempt on Atiku's River campaign DJ. And on Naira scarcity, Emifele keeps Nigerians in suspense after meeting with Buhari, which you can read more of the story on page 4 of the Daily Times newspaper. 11 days to 2023 polls, INEC cancelled 240 polling unit, expresses concern over violence. And then the IGP says Oduduwa agitators plotting to disrupt election in the southwest. Military insists exercise will be peaceful in the southeast across Nigeria. And Buhari to police, all eyes are on you. You can read more of that story on the front page. Teacher 41 gets life sentence for defiling people, which you can find on page 6. You can read more of that on the front page. And we can see President Muhammadu Buhari, Boss Mustafa, and other stakeholders as a picture story here. So you can do it by grabbing the Daily Times and read any story that is of interest to you.
On Sweet Crude Report, big oil smashes profit records in year of volatile prices. The big story, PAP's interim administrator Adelmu in alleged multi-billion naira fraud. The writer says accused of misappropriating 7.3 billion naira, directed 11.4 billion naira questionable payments. Questions over 26.5 billion naira PAP allocation. Appointment as oil theft panel chair under attack. At the downside of the paper, we have oil revenue. Nigeria earns 1.296 trillion naira from PPT, royalties, and others. Nigeria loses 15.9 billion naira as oil firms flare 6.8% of gas output. At the right side of the paper, we have a community. Niger Delta communities file damages claim against Shell in London court. And on finance, oil producing states share 135 billion naira derivation fund in 3 months. You can read the details of that on page 42 and 23. We have a picture story where we can see the Niger Delta militants, and that's all the news on Sweet Crude Report.
And on Business Day newspaper, the big story, from COVID to cash crisis, shocks leave Nigerians poorer. You can read that story on the front page, telling you the reason why we are having more Nigerians getting poor. And we have a commentary that said Naira redesign policy of faulty assumptions, systematic risks and way out, which you can find on page 24. And an explainer here say what foreign investors are watching in Nigeria's election. If you want to know what they are watching, you can read up that story inside the paper. Traders, transporters accept old Naira note despite the deadline. Now you can see there's a contradiction. We are having traders and transporters collecting the old Naira note. Meanwhile, banks and fuel station, courts are refusing to collect these bank notes. Of course, people are getting hungry. People are getting angry. Business needs to go on, because if you are going to even look at how have commodity prices been, how have common goods everyday buying have been. You know that things have dropped down because as a trader you can't make market because if you
Yes,
do not collect those old notes, and some people don't even have any cash
they
whatsoever, not
don't.
the old note, the
They
new
don't.
naira note,
Yeah.
because the banks are refusing to do anything. So we just hope that we're looking at the COVID that have caused confusion, but right now we can see that there is no money again for Nigerians to have. So we're still buying and hoping that they do something about it. We have a caller from Lagos. Hello, Mr. Steven. Good morning. Mr. Femi, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I
Morning.
greet everybody in the studio. I want to have a take on the secret police invitation to Femi Fani Kayode.
Hello, Mr. Femi. We can hear you. Go on, please.
It baffles me and the many Nigerians that such a highly placed and learned individual in the person of Femi Fani Kayode could raise a false coup alarm when Nigeria is sitting on a cake of gunpowder, and the invitation by the DSS where he could not prove his allegations beyond all reasonable doubts is is unbelievable. It portrays him as a very big liar who is bent on destroying Nigeria with his lies. Frankly, the DSS shouldn't have granted him bail for only saying that he regretted making such a statement and inviting him again on Wednesday. He should have been, that bail granted to him. I wonder, and it pains me if he's not going to forestall, the DSS in investigation. I want to put it to, you see, the DSS didn't exhibit much professionalism by granting him bail because he went there with a crowd of his party faithfuls. It is unfortunate. And I want to advise the secret police to investigate this matter, to know the source of Femi Fani Kayode's information on the coup which he is begging. That is my conclusion. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Femi, for that contribution. He's actually talking about what Fani Kayode, the goof thing he did. So we just hope that we don't call names. We just leave the case in the hands of the DSF. I mean, he has gone through the interrogation. They need to go. So we'll leave the law to take care of whatever it is. If there's anything, if there's any smoke or if there's any fire anywhere, they should be able to quench it before it escalates. So we just keep all of that to them. And that's all on Business Day newspaper.
On our sports paper, Mox consider buying United. How I'll spend my Valde coming from Falcon star Adule. Poor domestic form trial Parisien. This is Paris Saint-Germain versus Bayern.
All right, let's take the score from Mr.
Right.
James. Good morning, Mr.
I can hear you now. I've turned down my volume of my television. You said?
Hello, Mr. James. Go on, please.
Okay. I want to speak on the comment of Obi that it's time to make decisions. That Nigerians should be wise at this time, not to vote governments that will not stand on their promises and will not consider the feeling of the people. Look at the confusion we are in now. Nobody is taking any responsibility. Talk about the money policy, the money naira note policy. Nobody is taking responsibility. Federal government is playing to the gallery. The CBN is playing to the gallery. The masses are in confusion. And so we should look at the people who are electing. What is the level of their intelligence? What are the concerns they have for the poor masses? And what are the policies they are coming in that would kind of make a revolutionary change in the country? And please, we Nigerians should not be taken to be fools forever. Let's make the correction. And I believe the Lord will help us. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. James, for that contribution. Please, let's go on, Rachel.
Still on Punch Sport Extra, Haaland doubtful for Gunners clash. Onochu still may cause Genk title chase. Arsenal vs Brentford, VAR officials dropped after error. PSG willing to let Neymar go. At the south side of the paper, we have Lorient to make 240 million euros from Murphy's sale. Perez claims he didn't wanted France job. The big story, flop XI Aribo in list of non-performing Premier League summer transfer signing. Time to quit, Adesanya to retire in 5 years time, and you can read all of that on page 7, and that's all the news on Punch Sport Extra.
And let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper. Bank reject own Naira note as queues persist at ATMs. Buhari Emifede meet again in Asu Rock. POS operators lament impact of cash crunch. Rivers purchase of Kidney Island stake in OML 11 irreversible, court tells the SPDC. The big story coming from El-Rufai, I no longer believe in leadership quality around Buhari, alleges Buhari's cabal eyeing interim government. El-Rufai denying Buhari to run away from the APC. We have a card from Adamawa. Good morning. Hello, good morning. All right, we lost that caller. We hope you call us back again. Still on the Vanguard newspaper, the writer following the big story, El-Rufai denying Buhari to run away from APC's monumental failure coming from the Middle Belt Forum. They are smelling defect resulting to ING coming from the PDP leader. APC government unveiling imploring coming from Kachuku. Presidency and APC keep mum, so you can follow up that story on page 5. Atiku cancels River presidential campaign rally over face-off with Wike. And we have on the polls, federal government short polytechnics, which you can find on page 13. More anti-craft, CSO join Bauer must go protest. That also you can find on page 13. And on grazing reserve, lands belong to God, not you, Sultan tells the governor. So you can read more of that story on page 8. Yeah, of course it belongs to God. But I believe every governor have a rule that should govern his own state, how he feels he should rule his own state. So maybe when you have to permit particular governors when they do not want the grazing reserve, especially when you see cattle, roaming around, destroying, crops that belong to farmers and all of that. So I just hope that we have a meeting or we have a town hall where we have these headers together with the farmers so that the headers will be able to take care of their flocks from destroying crops at the end of the day. So yeah, of course, Richard, go on.
Like I keep saying it, I don't like hearing people making statements like this. You can't come when it comes to something sensitive instead of you saying the way forward to a problem. We know that the problem and the challenges that the people are facing is not about who owns the land, but the destruction that these cattle are doing to the farmers, and then the clashes left, right, center, the cattle destroying the crop and farmers losing money and all of that. You know what the situation is. As the Sultan, you're not to tell governors who owns the land, but the way forward. Every natural resource we have, it's being given to us by God, but we are with the sole responsibility of managing it. And if a governor chooses the way to manage these resources being given to them as a state, and they don't want cattle grazing because of the clashes in their state, then we should find a way of solving the problems we have in our community, in our states as Nigerians, but not making a very vague statement as God owns the land. Yes.
Winner from Adamawa. Good morning.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir. Please go on. Good morning.
Hello?
All right, we lost that caller again. Please go on, Rachel.
So yes, I'm just looking forward to where our leaders call a spade a spade. Say what the problem is. Tell the governors the way forward. Tell your people the way forward. Let's find a solution rather than as if when you say the land belongs to God solves the problem or takes away what the real issue is. So let's be leaders that point a problem out as it is and then find a solution rather than saying things that don't solve anything but
Yeah,
just
yeah,
cause more
yeah, of course,
chaos.
Richard. And I believe we are not the only country that have cattle. So, I mean,
We are
there are other
not.
countries that have cattle.
True.
So we should learn from all of this countryside. Where, how do they do? How do they
True.
take care of their cattle? How do they take care of their animals? I mean, you don't see them roaming
Roaming,
around,
yeah, they don't.
wandering as if they do not have owners. But then they should be given a particular place where they stay, take care of their cattle, and they don't cause havoc to, farmers.
Farmers,
So
yeah.
we hope we look into that. Still on the Vanguard newspaper, manufacturers spend 649 billion naira on raw materials import. So we can look more of that story on page 19. And on sport, we have on the 20 Falcons of Super Eagle. We have Falcon Eagle Storm Egypt for the 8th title. So for sport lovers, you can read more of that story on page 31. Lagos order inquest into death of Christland school pupil Whitney, which you can find more of that story on page 6. And still on Valentine's Day, share love not HIV Nika boss charges Nigerians, and that's on health. You can read more of that on page 22, and that's all on the Vanguard news.
Double court tells SPDC. Police claim Oduduwa agitators are amassing weapons to disrupt polls. Unloaded gun, church restates commitment to peace. Google Trends shows Nigeria leads in search for love in 2023, and you can read more of that on page 3. Ganduje Muta canvasses rich ranching as Sultan decries politicization of farmer-herder clashes, and you can read that on page 9. And the big story again, Buhari meets Emefiele, keeps mom on Naira swap. Then the writer says CBN embrace e-Naira internet banking as alternative to cash. Apex Bank loses 15 billion Naira to hoarding, explains how to exchange old notes. BDCs profit from Naira scarcity, lower exchange rate for cash transaction. Epezu worried over cash scarcity on traders in Abia. Commissioner says Niger governor orders police to arrest anyone rejecting old notes. And you can continue with that story on page 6. CSO march for removal of Bauer as EFCC chair. We have a picture story where we can still see people stranded at the ATMs in banks, and that's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
Thank you so much, Rachel, and we hope that even though the CBN governor is keeping quiet about the meeting, being the third time ever since this Naira crisis, we just hope he comes out and says something, or maybe his silent is actually to wait for the hearing tomorrow from the Supreme Court. So we just keep our fingers crossed. We just hope that there will be a lasting solution at the end of the day. And this ride actually caught my attention, embracing e-Naira. Of course, we want to embrace the e-Naira, but not everybody is knowledgeable when it comes to using of this. So it will take some time. How will you tend to educate somebody living in a village, someone that do not have an Android phone, a smartphone, on how to operate with all of this, where there's no cafe whatsoever, all of this. So we just hope that some of this process or some of this policy we're putting will take certain time. It's a gradual process, but we hope that everything will work out well at the end of the day.
And I'd like to say now is not the time for the CBN to just impose e-Naira on people. If you had these plans, then you're supposed to prepare Nigerians towards it. I think that's, if our system is truly to work well, you're not just supposed to wake up and impose things on people. We still have people who are not even conversant to something like the ATM, don't have cards, and now you're trying to impose e-Naira on a country where we're still struggling with our rural areas being developed and getting access to even basic amenities, and all of a sudden you want to impose e-Naira on us. And even for those in the urban area are still not even into the use of e-Naira, because our system, the way we trade, the way we transact, the way we do business hasn't even allowed that, because not every business person is established in such a way that permits e-Naira transaction, we also have to look at that factor. So I would like to say we can do better as a country, and I'm looking forward to when we do better, because you are facing a crisis of scarcity in naira. You can't just wake up and feel imposing what has been there new and not even fully understood as the way forward. I think we can come up with better solutions to what the problem is in Nigeria and give time for new technology to take its place and run down even to the rural areas.
Thank you so much, Rachel,
You're
for
welcome,
doing this with
Sarah.
me. Thank you to our callers, a crew member, producer, and also to the general manager, and also to the Eco executive. Thank you so much for a platform like this. And let me add my voice to what Nika said: spread love and not HIV on a love day like this. Do have a blessed day ahead.